Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Cameron Reigle.
Oh, my God, Cameron, the news, it just keeps coming. I thought after E3 was a relative bust for our little community. Sans the weird Sea of Thieves crossover with Disney, we didn't really have much coming out of E3, and it kind of deflated everyone. And then we hit the autumn, and everything's just gone completely kablooey.
I don't understand. We haven't had a Donkey Kong game in several years. Rare hasn't released a new game since 2018. How do we have this much news all the damn time?
Yeah. I mean, we're never hurting here on the Kongversation for topics to discuss. We wouldn't be nearing our 400th episode if we did. I mean, we're a tenacious bunch here at DK Vine. We know how to make conversation out of anything. But it's funny because, occasionally I would like to throw in one of those like nostalgic episodes or those fun little silly episodes. But no, it's just been news. In fact, originally this episode was going to be a reflection on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's ending, the ending of the content cycle for it, with our friend Mitchell Wolf. I was going to sit down with him and we were just going to talk about what a journey Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has been. And then we got new pieces of merchandise that I thought was more paramount to discuss, especially considering anybody out there can discuss Smash, but I feel like DK Vine in particular is suited to discuss this topic. This is the topic we were actually made for. So it's like, okay, we'll bump the Smash episode because there's no time limit on that. We can reminisce about that whenever. But that's all I've been doing lately, just bumping episodes. Bump, because we have more pressing news to discuss. And I'm not complaining, but when I said it was going to be a giant decade for Donkey Kong fans and for fans of the DKU, I thought we would have a little bit more time to prepare for it. But there's also a little bit of other news in addition to this new merchandise that we're going to discuss on this episode. And I figure we get this out of the way early because this is not really something that will take up much time. Nintendo announced the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack with the C, which I hate. I hate that it has a C, Cameron.
Yeah. To be clear, it's a C in the place where a C would normally be in the word pack.
Yes, it's not a C minus the K. It's CK, but
it's weird. I usually associate the 90s with okay, you use K instead of C like Mario Kart, or you put a Z at the end of stuff instead of an S. Removing a C to make a hard K at the end of the word, I feel like it wasn't even on my radar that Nintendo was doing that back then.
Yeah.
And now it's just weird to not see it.
It is, especially because it is so intertwined, entwined with the N64 and Nintendo, and Donkey Kong in particular, of course, but that's mostly down to the memes. But yeah, so maybe they wanted to get away from the memes because the memes are so phallic related.
Also, they haven't announced DK64 for it yet. I mean, they do have Majora's Mask, so that's there.
Yeah. But Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack is coming October 25th. That's next week. And will cost $49.99 a year for an individual membership, or $79.99 a year for the family plan, which we on DK Vine get a little insider information here on how we parse out our finances. We here at DK Vine are on the family plan. The staff, 4 mods were on the family plan together. It's really lovely, but that's a jump. The individual membership for just the regular Nintendo Switch Online is $19.99. This is US currency, by the way. And the family plan up until now was $34.99. So it's jumping $30 for the individual plan and like $45 for the family plan.
It's a pretty hefty jump, and I mean the additional features you're getting are the N64 library that they have on Nintendo Switch Online, the Genesis library, and also normally paid DLC for Animal Crossing. I think I would hope that in the future they're going to do that with more games than just Animal Crossing. I kind of assume that's why they set this price point the way they did, but I know there's been a lot of fervor about this online because it is a sizable jump.
Speaking of fervor, we have a call. So why don't we go ahead and play that, and then I don't have much to say about this, to be honest, but I wanted to have one of our listeners the time and the platform to voice their mind. So let's hear what they have to say.
Hey, Hyle, what's going on, man? This is Bullcraft Max, longtime listener. I called a while ago, back when Banjo-Kazooie was first announced in Smash, but I gotta know, what is going on with these Nintendo Switch Online pricing? I think the price point is extremely high. I want to play Banjo on the Switch, though, and play it back on the Nintendo console, but boy, that price is high, and over 150% increase is really crazy. So I need to know what you guys think about this. Love the show. Keep up the good work, guys. And, yeah, looking forward to the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you for the call, Bullcraft Max. And yeah, the price is high. It's a significant jump. It's a staggering jump. I don't know. It seems comparable to like the plans, like for example, Xbox. I just don't. It's hard for me to really get upset about any of this. Quite frankly, like I'm never one to be like, oh, Nintendo sells $60 games. They're selling a $60 game that was on the Wii U. I don't know why. Like, it's not like I made money. I am most decidedly not. By the way, DK Vine's on Patreon, by the way, dkvine.com/Patreon. No, I mean, I have to work gig jobs to make ends meet, especially in light of the pandemic. I am running myself ragged. I am not even sure if I'm going to be alive to see 40 because I feel like I'm halfway in the grave already. So I'm not made of money. I don't know why this doesn't bother me more. I think it's because if there is something, I've always been this way. If there's something I'm really passionate about, and it's not something that's completely out of my price, like buying an arcade cabinet for the Mario Kart arcade games. If it's within a like doable destination monetarily wise, I am willing to pay for it. A good example is there's first 4 figure statues of Banjo and Kazooie and Conker and now Mumbo and Crocodile Banjo. Completely ludicrously expensive, but they've got decent pricing plans. You can make monthly payments, and it just requires me to give up something else. And for me, my passions are the Donkey Kong universe, Rare, Platonic, that whole like subgenre upon a subgenre of gaming. And then, after that, it's like the Beatles, and then after that, it's just stuff I don't care as much about. So I'm always going to shell out for the DKU. And so I guess that's why it doesn't really bother me. I can see why if you're a more well-rounded gamer who actually like buys everything, that would be troublesome. But for me, I'm just buying DKU games, quite honestly. So I do pinch my pennies a little bit tighter than you, I think, because the only statue I have is the Ukulele Statue, which was significantly cheaper than all of the first for figure statues, even accounting for the fact that I had to buy it from an overseas seller in the Philippines. Oh, I actually did buy that. I actually did buy that statue, Cameron. The problem is I never got that statue.
Oh, I did too. It was water under the bridge. I have it. But it's in this case, it's hard for me to get upset about this, and it's not. It's partly circumstantial, and those circumstances are that I am on the family plan, and I kind of feel like the quiet part not being said loud is I kind of feel like the pricing is based around like Nintendo knowing that, like, realizing that they made a hyper forgiving and lenient family plan, which is to say it just has to be a group of up to 8. They can be anywhere in worldwide. Like, they don't have to be like local to you. They don't have to share your address.
Because family is what you make of it, Cameron. Family is what you make. Don't make me break out the Fast and the Furious memes.
Yeah, that would be apt considering what this is all leading to. But just a matter of if you can assemble a group of like 8 people you trust to pool their money and pay this. The difference is like $50 for one person. I would say if you are, let's say you don't care about Animal Crossing DLC, you're the kind of person who like could take or leave the Genesis games. You like only want Banjo-Kazooie or like to play Mario Kart 64 online. $50 is probably a bit steep for that. But for one person, but in a family plan divided it that essentially $80 price tag divided into 8, $10 a year to play a huge library of N64 games and all that. Like, yeah, that seems perfectly reasonable to me. And yeah, it's still not really at the price point, I would say, that like Sony and Microsoft's services are. I mean, it's hard for me to say because I'm starting to lose track of their price points because of the various permutations of Game Pass Ultimate, PS Now, PS. Yeah,
no, I get it. Yeah, all I know is the money comes out of my account. So I'm like, and I can access the things I want to access. So,
but yeah, this is just a PSA. Like, just if the price bothers you, but you still want to, you still want these online games, but the price is really going to hurt you. I like try to assemble a family plan. Get on somebody else's. I know that isn't going to be possible for everyone, and not everyone can probably put together a group of 8, but any amount of people you can put together helps.
Right.
To pare that down. And I think like Nintendo, in the interest of their marketing, can't just come out and say that, but just that's what I would recommend.
The problem is if you have a group of 10. So in those awkward circumstances, and you want to keep it to a group of 8, I would recommend not running over the frog and not completing the time trials.
You can turn them off in the cheat menu, right?
Why would I want to in that circumstance? Anyway, yeah, thanks for the call, Bullcrap. Like I said, like for me, playing Banjo on my Switch, that's worth it. Like I would spend $50 a year by my lonesome for that privilege, but I'm a freak. And I fully recognize that. I am the most hardcore of the most hardcore. So I am not in a place to like dispense wisdom when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I would also say like $10 a year to play a big library of N64 games still feels a little bit better than, say, paying out like $2 to $7 every time Donkey Kong Country gets released on a new system.
Yeah, it's not perfect, and I still have issues with the way Nintendo does things, as far as like game preservation goes, of course. But I think it's fine. I'm not going to lose any sleep over the pricing. I just have to remember to chip in my portion of the family plan next week. I can't forget, or else I'll be excommunicated. So thanks for the call, Bullcrap.
Yeah, we're going to turn the Hyle cheat off.
Really quick, hello to our friend Josh Wallen, the Geek Critique, in the live stream chat right now. Ray Day Pinball, also a friend, is in there as well. Hello, thanks for joining us. We'll be checking in with the live stream as we go. That is a privilege, by the way, of the DK Vine Patreon. $5 and up. That's our pricing plan. Gets you in. You can listen to most Kongversation episodes live as we record them and interact with us. Steer us in the right direction that you want to see us go in. That's a racing game joke there, Cameron. And also a special hello to all of our new listeners on Spotify. If you found us in recent weeks on Spotify, hello. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around. And don't forget to check out our proper site, dkvine.com. We have the big news stories on everything related to the Donkey Kong universe, rare, platonic, everything that kind of spins out of Donkey Kong Country onward. We cover it, we obsess about it, sometimes to an unhealthy degree, but we are the pound for pound most dedicated fan site, news site, lifestyle brand for these games, if you're a fan of any of them. And for more proof on that, follow us on social media, DK Vine. We're on Twitter and Facebook. I run those, update those every day. Joe Mudd, site staffer, runs our Instagram page. So check it out. All right. Cameron, you were on an episode earlier this year where we just talked about a new Diddy Kong render. That was actually an old Diddy Kong render that just had new fur on it. And at the time, it seemed like the smallest thing to base an episode around. On this episode of The Kongversation, we're discussing 2 pins that are for sale. So, what is the smaller thing? You decide, but...
Well, I don't know. The pins are physically small, but also a render is immaterial. So...
Right. It's hard to compare the two. Maybe if that render was sold as an NFT, there would be some sort of monetary comparison we could make, but there isn't. It's free for everyone. So.
Well, I mean, then I could just right-click it and save as, so...
Shh. You're not supposed to know that. Anyway, sorry to keep you on pins and needles for the actual topic of this episode, everyone. We'll remove the needles, but the pins are going to stay in. It's another joke. I'm full of them today. So last Tuesday, Fangamer, we're big Fangamer fans, here at DK Vine. I mean, I have been shopping at Fangamer since before they were like the huge entity they are today. Back when they were making just merchandise inspired by games rather than actually making official tie-in merch for all of these studios. And so to see their evolution has been pretty staggering. But I mean, I wore out my Simian Sidekick shirt that they sold like back in, was it 2014? I wore that out. I had several versions of it, and I think it was just a few years ago that I finally had to just retire them because they were so faded and stretched.
And it was a design that was made to look pre-worn to begin with.
Right. So eventually I just couldn't justify it. It's still at the bottom of my shelf, bottom of my drawer, because I can't part with it, but it's my absolute favorite shirt of all time. If they ever brought it back in any way, I would absolutely buy it in a heartbeat. But
I know both of us had followed Fangamer from their earlier days, and they've kind of exploded exponentially throughout over the course of this decade, and for completely justified reasons. They put out quality products. I'm not doing an ad, by the way. This is legit how I feel about them. They put out quality products. You can tell they consider where they're getting their shirts from and their manufacturing. and they hire very talented designers and artists to put all this stuff together for them.
Yes, and
like they've earned their level of success for sure.
The artists are clearly fans of the properties too. Like, I feel like that's important. So you get that love conveyed from the beginning of the production until it arrives in your mailbox. And yeah, so I've got a ton of Fangamer shirts, but as of late, I've got more Fangamer stuff than shirts. I've got their plushes because they've got all of those rare plushes, right? We finally got like a new Banjo-Kazooie plush. We've got the Talking Conker plush with Chris Seaver's voice. You squeeze him and he says things to you. We've got the ukulele plush. We've got the Jinjos, and they just announced the Jinjonator. And I brought this up in my news article in DK Line about this, but how weird is it, Cameron, that in a week where a toy, essentially, for the Jinjonator is announced, that barely registers on our news radar or hype meter. Like, we are so spoiled at the moment, and I don't know if everyone realizes how spoiled our fandom is getting compared to where we were.
I just want to point out one thing that like still staggers me about that Jinjonator plush. That Jinjonator plush exists by popular demand. Because they made regular Jinjo plushes, and as like a little joke, they made up one of them to look like the Jinjonator to like pose a photo. And I would guess they got response to that photo of, that looks awesome, where can I buy the Jinjonator?
Yeah. Yeah, and the Jinjonator, of course, is...
But just by popular demand, the Jinjonator.
The Jinjonator, of course...
A popularly demanded character.
Is a popular demanded character, though, by virtue also of appearing in Smash, in Banjo and Kazooie's final Smash. So, like, Smash the Kingmaker has kind of given the Jinjonator of all things this exalted status that, honestly, the Jinjonator was this obscure thing that only like weirdos at DK Vine, our friend Jeff Perez, a big shot in the Rare fan community. He's the biggest Jinjonator fan I know, but it's that kind of level. It's just like us and
I'm
our
so
friends.
happy on Jeff's behalf.
Yeah,
that this happened.
It's one of those characters. It would be like an evil Acorn plush or a Ted the Boat Builder plush. And honestly, I'm not turning up my nose at either one of those because I think anything's on the table at this point.
Yeah,
but
I am thrilled this happened. It's just when I take a step back, like even 3 years ago, this would have been ridiculous.
But again, the Jinjonator barely registers because we're kind of desensitized to certain things. And it's so funny to look at the trajectory we've been on, as a fandom, either, Rare or Donkey Kong over the last couple of years. But, K. Rool coming back, Banjo-Kazooie getting into Smash, all this merchandise. And now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, Jinjonator plush. That's cool. But did you see this? and it's almost, it reminds me just a bit of a drug addict in search of a bigger high. And we're kind of like addicts in search of the bigger, more obscure pool or the bigger deal for our fandom. And so it's going to get to the point where the only thing that will do it for us is a Ted the Boat Builder pin or plush or something, because all of this stuff that has kind of fallen into the obscure or the forgotten is kind of coming back and it's kind of being built back up. And I was just lamenting with the aforementioned Josh Wallen, the Geek Critique, on the last episode of the Kongversation, how it felt like the most significant part of my childhood, those defining years from adolescence into my teenage years into adulthood, have kind of been wiped from the collective memory banks by things like the Rare buyout and things like Diddy Kong Racing sort of existing in this purgatory. They get brought up from time to time, but they're never really brought up because of the issues surrounding them. And so, you know, looking back at like Nintendo's website from the late 90s, early aughts, like 1999 into 2000, and I just see how all of this stuff that DK Vine is sort of built on, our community is built on, all of this stuff was so prevalent, and now it's just not. And it made me sad, right? It brought me down a little bit. Not because, oh, they ruined my childhood. My childhood still existed. I still have memories of it, and I still celebrate it with our website. But, you know, it does kind of put you in a weird spot because it's not like fans of other properties have this issue so much, right? Like Ocarina of Time fans never have to worry about that game being forgotten about because of rights issues. So anyway, this game that we're kind of tiptoeing around, Diddy Kong Racing, is like the game that I really feel more than any other our website is built on. Yes, we might celebrate Donkey Kong Country 2 a bit more, or Banjo-Kazooie a bit more. I like Grab by the Ghoulies better than Diddy Kong Racing. But all that being said, I don't think there's a game that has more significance or sentimental value to us and what we represent, right? This wild shared universe of Donkey Kong and Rare characters. That was what Diddy Kong Racing gave us. And I mean, Diddy Kong Racing was sort of this touchstone for DK Vine and just people who wrote into Rare's website back in the day. Because it introduced us to Banjo, it introduced us to Conker, it introduced us to Tip Top, it introduced us to Tricky, all characters who were later expanded on in later Rare games. And of course, you know, other things like it was Diddy's first true game by himself, separate from any other Kongs. It gave us the character Crunch, you know, the Kremling who turned good, and then Crunch would inspire the look of the critters in Donkey Kong 64. I mean, so much spun out of Diddy Kong Racing, and it kind of became this parlor game that we would play. Like, okay, so what would a Pipsy game look like, right? What would a bumper game look like? What would a drumstick game look like? And so, I mean, that was something Rare fans did in the late 90s, is daydream what games and genres you could do with other Diddy Kong Racing characters. Like, let's just imagine that this is a well of perpetual ideas for games. Let's keep building this shared universe. Let's go crazy with it. And I don't need to belabor any points about how the dreams that Diddy Kong Racing gave us quickly fell by the wayside. Not even with spin-offs, but sequels. You've brought up so many times how the very notion of a Diddy Kong Racing sequel is cursed. And that is true. Whether it be an actual Diddy Kong Racing sequel or just this spiritual successor, nothing.
Especially if it involves Timber the Tiger. Just
yeah, Timber himself is a whole other level of curse, considering that, as you know, we all know from the development history, the well-documented development history, Diddy Kong Racing started life as Pro-Am 64, which was starring Timber the Tiger. When Diddy became the star of it, Timber was bumped to like the second most important character. And then, you know, Timber was also going to be the star of Dinosaur Planet, or what became Dinosaur Planet, which of course is what became Star Fox Adventures. Timber was bumped for Saber, who was bumped for Fox. So he was like extra buried in that game. But yeah, poor Timber, man. Timber is one of those characters that I think a lot of fans from that era have a lot of affection for. Timber, I mean, he's just like a tiger in a baseball cap, but there's just something about him. There's just something about him. I don't know if it's in the design or the Stamper Child's portrayal of Timber, but there's just something endearing about the little fella, and you can't help but love him. And so we've like I said, belabored the lack of Diddy Kong Racing. It has been sort of this constant source of depressing discussion for the last couple years here on the Kongversation. Jeff and I did an episode about it last season called The Forgotten Diddy Kong Racing, and it's come up quite a bit this season as well. And so that's what made this merchandise this week, I think, the biggest, most shocking thing of the year. Because I want to be upfront about something too. Like, I know a lot of people think I'm so like plugged in, right? Like I have contacts everywhere. I know everything that's coming, and I had no idea. I had no idea this was coming. And I'm not like, I'm usually pretty upfront when I know things, or at least I'm boyishly coy about it, right? And this blew me away. I did not see this coming. I didn't hear it coming. I didn't hear, whatever meme or reference you want to put into this. It was the most shocked I've been probably since K. Rool was revealed.
It also like came shockingly under the radar. Like I didn't know about this, but I am usually like, I would say fairly plugged in whenever like Fangamer launches a new product or like anything like Rare / Nintendo adjacent breaks, just because of the nature of like my community circles and like the mailing lists I'm signed up to.
Yeah.
This, somebody just like slid this to me in an image, and it kind of broke my brain that I was learning about it like the way that I used to learn about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just talked with Josh about how I was so sick of Nintendo Directs, or maybe I was with Malik and Josh. I just talked about this with both, I think, where I was sick of the, like, get hyped for the hype for the hype. Here's a trailer for a trailer for a trailer. And I was like, I just missed the days when I just logged onto a website and there the news was, and it completely surprised me. And that's what this was. Like, there is no, I mean, granted, for the level of merchandise this is, you're not going to get a trailer like this, but this was so under the radar that I had to question whether it was real or not until I got to the website and saw it for myself. And yeah, they are 2 new pieces of merchandise, 2 pins that, they're Timber and Banjo, sans Kazooie, in carts with balloons. Each pin comes with a balloon pin representing the weapons balloons one might find in this particular property. This is a huge deal. This is a huge deal because when Rare really opened up the spigot for merchandise around 2015, it was around the time Rare Replay got off the ground. That's when they really started branching out with merchandise and kind of giving us the kind of gear that we as fans have been starved for decades. I mean, decades. Even at the height of the 90s and the Rareware era, we weren't getting that much in the way of merchandise, right? Like there was a Banjo-Kazooie plush. There was a Mumbo Jumbo plush you get for reserving Banjo-Kazooie at Toys R Us.
We had again, I think this might speak to Diddy Kong Racing's curse a little bit. we had this kind of odd, like Mount Everest style spike in the graph when Toy Site or Toy Biz released Diddy Kong Racing and Donkey Kong 64 and toy line.
Okay, so Toy Biz, who I believe then owned Marvel Comics, to show you how far we've come from that era when Marvel was bought by a toy company, when they were like such a non-entity. Toy Biz released the Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing line. And in Toy Biz's Diddy Kong Racing line, we had Diddy in a plane, we had Banjo in a cart, and we had Whizpig on his missile. And then Toy Sight, they were the ones who released the Donkey Kong line of toys, which were Donkey Kong, a couple different Donkey Kongs. One of them came packaged with a Kiddy Kong, of all things. Funky Kong, Cranky Kong, and Diddy Kong. And there was going to be a second wave with the DK64 Kongs, and I believe a Crash from Donkey Kong Country in the minecart.
And they were going to release a like dedicated Banjo and Kazooie as part of their greater like Nintendo line.
Yeah, and none of that stuff got off the ground.
Right,
and there's no second wave of Diddy Kong Racing figures either. I think they did
just this supernova of activity and then a dead star.
Yeah, I think there was going to be there was a second wave of Mario Kart 64, because I remember seeing like the Wario figure circulating online. But in the first wave, there was the Donkey Kong Mario Kart 64, in his pipe frame yellow cart with the trail of bananas. And so it was like the late 90s. All of a sudden, we had all of these Donkey Kong action figures, and we did have a couple options in the plushes. And it was just like, yeah, Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo, and then, you're right, nothing.
As I'm fond of pointing out, because it's just ridiculous every time I say it, Whizpig got an action figure before K. Rool, from the games anyway. Like the TV show K. Rool got an action figure.
Whizpig got an action figure before Dixie Kong. And Dixie Kong still has not
Dixie Kong still doesn't have an articulated action figure.
No, she's got the small little ones from two different lines, but yeah, Dixie does not have an actual action figure. And yeah, it's just kind of crazy that a Whizpig of all characters got one. And that's why Whizpig is one of my most cherished possessions.
Even if Diddy Kong Racing's history didn't end up panning out so strange in its later years, that would still be a weird blip.
Yeah.
Of getting Whizpig so prominently merchandised before anybody else.
Yeah, my band, I have the Banjo action figure without Kazooie, and so for whenever I was I'm displaying these figures for social media or for whatever I'm doing with DKBot, it's always weird that Kazooie's just not there. It's just Banjo.
Yeah, this was an era where you could get a dedicated Banjo action figure and Kazooie who?
Yeah, which I sort of love because it is a reference to Diddy Kong Racing, which is this very meaningful game. But yeah, I mean, a timber pin and a banjo pin. And so I those moments when you get a piece of news, be it good or bad, but it just feels like the entire world around you slows down into Matrix bullet time. And that is the feeling when I saw this timber pin. I just couldn't understand exactly what I was seeing. Is this real? Am I dreaming? Or am I just completely misinterpreting something? So this line, right? These new pieces of Fangamer merchandise, they are under a brand that Fangamer is calling, because the actual full title seems to be Fangamer Presents RareRacers. RareRacers, all one word, capital R, and so of course, because this is what I've always done, Cameron, and I know you're similar. When I was a kid, I would pore over every inch of my game boxes, my instruction manuals. I would read the fine print because I felt like every word was sacred for this amazing property that I was in love with, that spoke to me like no other piece of fiction did. And so I found myself doing the exact same thing when it came to these pins. The very first thing I had to do was click the images to see the reverse side of the pins. Right? And because I wanted to read the copyright information, even though I was pretty certain what it was, because again, I read the box art, I read the fine print, I read, copyright information. Some kids traded in Pokemon cards. I traded in weird trivia. Like, did you know, according to the Donkey Kong 64 Player's Guide, Rare actually owned the rights to Trough and Scoff. And I didn't have any friends then, but that's the kind of stuff that I loved, right? Like, it was fascinating to me, especially because, and I've told this story before on the Kongversation, but it bears repeating. Not birds repeating because Kazooie isn't here. The day I found out about Diddy Kong Racing, it was in the back of the October 1997 Nintendo Power. Because it was a very late announcement. As we all know the history there. Banjo-Kazooie got delayed. Nintendo needed a replacement holiday title. Rare had this game basically almost ready to go. I mean, it was basically in a finished state. And that's how it became Diddy Kong Racing. We'll get into that in a little bit, but they announced it very late. It was like, here you go, Diddy Kong Racing's coming. It's going to be the big holiday title. We're previewing it in the back of Nintendo Power. And so reading this article and finding out that Rare was publishing Diddy Kong Racing and that, it was introducing Banjo and Conker and all of this. It was just one of the most incredible days in my young fandom. Because it was like all of a sudden, I was viewing this world of Donkey Kong Country through this small little hole. And all of a sudden then somebody points out that there's a window over here. And so my view was expanded, Cameron. And I could see everything. Banjo was part of it. Conker was part of it. And I remember having this discussion with my friend Elliot, all right? Because we found out about it together.
You sure it was Banjo outside the window and not Duck Hunt?
But I said, Elliot, I don't know what this means. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, if Rare is publishing Diddy Kong Racing, does this mean that Rare now has the rights to Diddy Kong? and I was, what happens if one day,
as Rare children say,
no, I am not. I've told this story before. This might not be verbatim, but this is actually the discussion I had. I said, what happens if one day Rare and Nintendo no longer work together? Does that mean Diddy Kong will no longer appear in Donkey Kong games? And like, I don't know, some children worry about their parents splitting up. This is what I was already thinking about in 1997 because I was just, like, this fascinated me. I don't know. And come to find out that no, Rare did not have the rights to Diddy Kong, but otherwise my prediction would come true and we would have to deal with this weird split rights, purgatory that Diddy Kong Racing would eventually find itself in. So anyway, long story short, I always read the fine print. It's intriguing to me. And, so I looked at the fine print of these pins, right? And I saw this logo, the RareRacers logo. And I'm not the only one who did this. Our, good friend, fellow site staffer on DK Vine, Matt Corna, he was so excited by seeing this logo that he made a mock-up of it. Because we've only seen it, this monochrome in like gold and black, or like we haven't seen the full color version of it that may appear on the pin packaging. We don't know what it looks like, but
we've only seen this as like a sort of like it's raised lettering on the back of the pins.
Yeah, like resin or whatever it's made out of. But Matt just made a full color version of it. He was so excited about like just this very notion of ostensibly Diddy Kong Racing in merchandise under this new brand, that he made this logo for it. And that's what you see on this episode's artwork. If you're listening to it on SoundCloud or YouTube, or you've seen it on social media, that's where that came from. It was just a mock-up made by Matt, who was so excited, as we all were. But it's it's funny how like I pulled that out of it. I immediately cropped it. I was like, okay. I got to do my news story for DK Vine. Got to put this out in social media, because it was, as you said, Cameron, under the radar. Fangamer presents RareRacers Kart pins, and let me read you the actual text, the write up on Fangamer's website, because I feel like this is important too for context. For our Rare Racers project, we're putting some of our favorite racers from Rare's history, in parentheses, sorry RC Pro-Am, you're great too, into carts, and from there onto pins with spinning wheels, and from there onto your jacket, bulletin board, desk, etc. So, again, I have no knowledge about this, how this came about, whose idea it was, who pitched it to whom. But it seems like they are being very careful and very deliberate with their wording. And
it's the phrasing is very funny to me, because I think it's implicitly, like, if I was to read this blurb without having actually seen this, I would think, oh, well, you're, like, say if you did this for, well, I'll say, like, the blurb kind of makes me think, like, oh, you have this giant stable of characters who have all been in racing games, and you're going to pull from every single one. Like, say, Nintendo, like, you did this for Nintendo, you would have, like, oh, you'll probably have, like, Mario, but also like Captain Falcon.
Yeah.
And like the Excitebike guy. But then you read like the contextual, like, fine print and thinking like, okay, well, wait, Rare hasn't actually made that many racing games with characters who are visibly represented and that they own. Like, you know, Mickey Speedway USA wouldn't be in this.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked there aren't conspiracy theorists who are saying, well, no, Rare and Disney are on good terms right now. Of course they're going to release Mickey Speedway USA into the Rare Racers line. Of course. Yeah, they by calling out RC Pro-Am and saying, no, you're not included, RC Pro-Am, it's pretty clear what they're trying to convey without saying it, right?
Especially funny since Pro-Am 64 was at one point the name of Diddy Kong Racing, so
at least
Pro-Am's getting the Timber treatment.
Yeah, at least Timber got his pin, right? At least Timber was in the first wave, and we don't have to worry about the line ending before Timber gets because yeah, like if it was just Banjo and Conker in this first line, right? And they were in these carts. By the way, these carts are authentic. They look pretty authentic to the way they did in Diddy Kong Racing.
I kind of just want to gush over that for a minute because, like, you know, we so rarely get like Diddy Kong Racing acknowledged, but in the times that like it's been brushed up against in like the almost 2 decades since the buyout, we found out about TT and the Sea of Thieves prototype. We saw the Xbox Vision camera version of Fast and Furious with like Tip Top and TT as like mascot head costumes.
Well, yeah, TT was a mascot costume that you could put yourself into. Tip Top actually appeared in the game as a real character that I think you could.
Oh, right. I'm mudding that up. This is it. It's so hard for me to get this right because it sounds absurd for me to even describe it.
Yeah, I think you curled with Tip Top. You played curl, like you pushed him on a shell and he like would like go off onto the ice. But what was interesting there was it was the Diddy Kong Racing design of Tip Top and not the more Ed Bryan kind of bulbous head Banjo-Kazooie design of Tip Top. An important distinction there.
Right, but what I'm getting at is most of the brush-ups we've had a bit of with Diddy Kong Racing in those years have been, aside from Diddy Kong Racing DS and everything surrounding that, they've all been either just like jokey, haha, wink, wink, nods to, there was a racing game with Banjo in it, or Diddy Kong was in a racing game that one time, or it's explicitly appearances by the characters who were in the game. The karts that were in Diddy Kong Racing haven't really been in anything that's not Diddy Kong Racing or Diddy Kong Racing DS adjacent. And I love seeing them because, I mean, I love the design of that kart. I've always thought it was really fun. And the balloons, too. Like, you don't see the balloons get play in anything because they're balloons.
Yeah, I'm a little upset. I mean, I'm not upset about anything because this is good news all around. And how entitled am I to already find something to nitpick at? But the notion that these pins would, like, if there are more in this RareRacers line, this notion that they would only be in karts, that we wouldn't get any planes or hovercrafts, kind of like, I was like, oh, that's a shame because part of the joy of Diddy Kong Racing are the three vehicles. But I love these karts. I'm not really complaining here because I love, especially the big orange tires that just seem like they're so bouncy. There's something so appealing about these in comparison to like the pipe frames from Mario Kart that were prevalent at the time, or all of the like other generic vehicles in Mario Kart after that. I
love the like giant like inner tube tire, like scorching red and orange tires on these. I've always loved that about Diddy Kong Racing, and I still love seeing it now.
Yeah.
I could really just gush about like the way these look for probably an hour. I should say they're credited designs to Versiris and John Kay. That's Jonkay. And I'm familiar with Versiris's work. We both met her. She does spectacular, amazing work, and she very clearly has a passion for these characters in games as much as we do.
Yeah, well, she is the brains behind the plushes as well. All of the rare and platonic plushes that we've gotten from Fangamer, and so I love her artwork. She did a great fan tribute to the game called Timber's Island, right? A few years back, and
right,
so
with
I've
Timber
always
front and center in that
with
piece.
Timber front and center. So I've always loved her design, her like eye for the characters, and to see that reflected in these pins, I can clearly tell she drew this Timber, right? And so like I'm like, yeah. It's
perfect. Perfect. It also, I'm curious if you got the same vibe from it. These pins both also remind me in the best way of the Japanese Diddy Kong Racing ad.
Diddy Kong Racing. Yep. Completely. Especially that banjo. Cause I just posted a GIF, on Twitter with that, commercial the other week, right? Like it was Diddy, Banjo, and Conker all kind of driving together. And so that was fresh in my mind when I saw this banjo. But yeah, it's almost like what would DK King of Swing look like if or rather, what would Diddy Kong Racing look like if Payon got to make like a Game Boy Advance version of it around the same time as King of Swing, because it's got that great kind of hand-drawn style that you don't often see any of these DKU characters represented in outside of those one or two examples.
Yeah, I mean that's part of why I love King of Swing so much. I ride or die for King of Swing, because you almost never get to see Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong adjacent characters in this very graphical, flat 2D style, because they were designed to be 3D characters, and they can translate really, really well in a fun way to it. And I love seeing it every single time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really excited about further pins in this line, right? Like, here's hoping we get. I'm just spitballing here, but I would love if there was a second wave with Pipsy and Conker, because I feel like Conker would be in the second wave, right? Because if you're gonna have Banjo in the first one, I feel like Conker would be an obvious choice if you want to have that like big name in there. If they're kind of like still testing out the waters a bit.
I could see them like doing waves released kind of like they did with this. Like you put Conker in as the big name, and then you put in Pipsy or Bumper, somebody who did get a game people remember, and someone who stuck strictly to Diddy Kong Racing,
and maybe like Tipped Up in the third wave to anchor it. Oh, I know that's a turtle from Banjo-Kazooie, and then you can have Bumper or Drumstick or TT. TT might be hard to pull off a little bit in this pin style, but I'm hoping we get a TT somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I know we like talked in our DK Vine Discord chat, like when these came out, like additional possibilities that would be cool. Like I would be fine with a pin that was just like a front-facing TT. I saw the really cool suggestion from someone. I'm sorry, I can't think at the moment who made the suggestion, but a front-facing plane with a like spinning propeller.
Oh,
in the way that, because like just as a thing, like Fangamer has like. I wouldn't, before the last few years, I would not have considered myself a person who collects pins at all. But Fangamer has made a really good practice of making pins of stuff that I care about that doesn't typically get merchandise. And also finding like fun solutions to make them interactive. Like the two of their Perfect Dark pins, like they could have just had a pin with like the Perfect Dark PD logo, but instead it's a pin of a toilet seat that has an interactive hinge that you lift up and there's a piece of cheese inside. Or like one of their non DKU pins that I really like is they did a pin of Revolver Ocelot from Metal Gear Solid, whose like whole gimmick is he does like fancy like spinning gun tricks with an old Western revolver, and what they did was they have a pin of him and the gun in his hand is on a hinge, so it spins endlessly.
Yeah, the one I got this pin the other week because I haven't been buying all these pins. I've been getting a few here or there. I obviously got the classic Rareware logo pin, and then the wireframe Rareware logo pin, which was kind of closet Donkey Kong Country merchandise. I think that's a point you brought up, was that this was like the one piece of Donkey Kong Country merchandise that Rare could possibly be involved with. Is that wireframe Rare logo from the beginning.
It's not like immediately apparent that it's tied to Donkey Kong Country, because you think, well, Rare puts their logo in everything. But I had the realization, like, the intro of Rare's logo being built out of like green wireframe is only in Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah. So, then they brought up, so they had the t-shirt for it, and then they brought up the pin for it. And one of my other cherished possessions is the modern current Rare logo. I got that as a pin at E3 2015 when Rare sort of had their coming out party for their rebranding, and they announced Rare Replay and Sea of Thieves, and I got that pin at E3, and it's just, I love it to death, and so I wanted to get the classic versions too.
And I'm grateful to you for smuggling one of those ones of the new Rare logo back to me. And no take backs now. It's been 4 years or so.
But so yeah, I was just gonna get those, and then I ended up just. I think they were having a sale, and I ended up snagging the ukulele heads, and then I wanted to get, when we're talking the interactivity with the pins, I wanted to get the one with Banjo's backpack that hinges up to reveal Kazooie. I was like, that's pretty cool. I'll get that one. And then we did our Cracklestone episode, Ukulele and the Cracklestone, the other month, and then we interviewed DM Cumbo right after that, and I got the pin I got with the Kickstarter campaign, and for Ukulele and Cracklestone, because I love, we were talking about Visirus and her eye for the Diddy Kong Racing characters. I love DM Cumbo's look for ukulele, so to have them that in a pin form, I put that with my pins, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm getting obsessed with pins of all things. I'm becoming an obsessive pin hoarder, because I also have all these pins from the Sea of Thieves Reaper's Mark every E3 after 2015, because they would have the new Reaper's Mark. And then I had the original like beta version of the Reaper's Mark that I got somewhere. It might have I got it at Rare maybe. I don't know. But anyway, long story short, I have a shelf full of pins. And then they announced this, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna buy them all. I ended up ordering the Bad Fur Day set, and there's still a couple more. I need to get the Banjo-Kazooie head, and I don't know what else I'm missing, but
the Bad Fur Day set, I love the stylization on those. Those were designed by Nina Matsumoto, whose work I also am a huge fan of. She's done I'm such a wide variety of work that I'm always surprised to see her name pop up, but it's always spectacular.
God, I want you to be able to design something. This is not me making a pitch. Cameron, you didn't know I was going to say this, but I really would love to see you doing something for Fangamer, because your art always just blows me away. You've got just the perfect rendition of every character. I would buy so many of your pins, Cameron, let me tell you. Anyway, just the very idea of Diddy Kong Racing merchandise it is something that I sort of lost hope for, because when they opened up, as I said, the spigots back in 2015, I was like, oh, Banjo-Kazooie merch, ooh, Conker merch. But in the back of my head, I was always like, I would love anything Timber. And the rights issues with Diddy Kong Racing, as I said, I traded in this info as a kid, right? This was kind of like a religion for me, was accumulating this information. And it was just, I did no special trick here. I got the information from reading copyright blurbs on the back of boxes. And maybe sometimes it's a bit more nuanced than these little blurbs have you believe, but it's on the back of the original N64 Diddy Kong Racing box. Copyright 1997 Rare. Diddy Kong, Banjo, and Crunch characters licensed by Nintendo. Right?
It kind of betrays how kind of silly this was even back in the day, that we character names like Crunch, Trough, Scoff, and Tiny Kong are all committed to fine print.
Yeah, but so from 1997 to 2002, right? It was just okay. So Rare actually has the copyright to all of these characters. except Diddy, obviously, except Banjo, because Banjo-Kazooie was developed, the kind of co-production between Rare and Nintendo.
Also not Crunch, because they retroactively made him a Kremling.
Right. That's the craziest thing about any of this, in my opinion, is that Crunch was an alligator character in like Pro-Am 64. I don't know when he popped up, because, it's kind of muddled when characters got roped into this. We know when Diddy Kong came into it, but that's really it. But
we seem to be having a really good string of luck of things that we thought were never possible being possible. So I'm just going to say right now, loud enough for everybody to hear it, gee, it's a real shame that we haven't seen anything relating to Crunch the Kremling in a long, long time.
Sorry to break it to you, Cameron, but Sora is the final character in Smash. Sora from off of Kingdom Hearts. I don't know if you heard about that.
Well, Sora's rights are a lot less simple and clean than Crunch's, so...
Yeah, but yeah, like theoretically, right? Had they just kept it an alligator, then he wouldn't have become a Nintendo character. Anyway, that's the way it exists until 2002. And then, of course, the buyout happened, and we know the Banjo-Kazooie, like the cleanest way to go about it. Because at that point, things were, I think, kind of messy. If you're judging the Donkey Kong 64 player's guide, copyright paragraph by, if you're judging that and taking that into account, things were kind of getting sort of, freewheeling a little bit where like Rare had the copyright to all these new characters in Donkey Kong 64. And I'm not sure if that was like a temporary measure or what, but the cleanest way, the cleanest break seemed to be, okay, Microsoft is buying Rare. We, Nintendo, are not buying Rare. So
yeah, I have no grounds to like base this assumption on, but I kind of assumed like the muddier, weirder, like, character rights things at the time, like, why does Rare own a bunch of Kongs and such? I kind of, in the back of my mind, suspected, like, is that so, like, I have to imagine, like, Rare and Nintendo mutually are thinking, like, we're never gonna split up. This relationship's too good. Let's just... Rare can own these characters. Nintendo will be the only ones who ever uses them, but, Rare will get to wet their beaks a little bit whenever the characters are used and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have no understanding of actually why that was the case, but, and I've said...
That's the only way I could ration it in my head, because otherwise, why wouldn't Nintendo just own the Kongs for a Donkey Kong game?
Yeah, and I've spoken just purely like spitballing, but I phrased it in a really bad way, and I on social media a couple years ago where I made it was kind of like a joke where I said like essentially it was a hostage situation in 2002 where like it's like, all right, we'll give you Banjo-Kazooie if you give us the Kongs, and it's not like Rare traded.
Yeah, a lot of people have misinterpreted that as like it was like trading, like you said, a hostage negotiation or like trading baseball players.
Yeah, it's not like Nintendo traded the Banjo-Kazooie cast for Tiny, Chunky, and Lanky.
I think the likely scenario is like Nintendo and Rare mutually looked at what they both owned and thought, well, like, what the hell are we going to do with these? We like Rare is not going to use like third stringers from the Donkey Kong cast in something.
Yeah, and that opens up a whole can of worms there. So you're just like, the cleanest way to go about it, I think, was just okay. We Nintendo, we get everything related to Donkey Kong and everything related to Star Fox, because Star Fox Adventures had just come out, and you Rare, you can get everything you created outside of those properties. So Banjo, Conker, Killer Instinct, so on. And it's like, and Conquer that they've always had the rights to. But anyway,
it seems like the most amicable circumstances you could have asked for, and I think like pretty good on Rare's end, really, because they get to keep basically all of their original developed properties.
The only issue then, the only game that kind of is left without a home is Diddy Kong Racing, because Diddy Kong Racing, as we've said, published by Rare. But Diddy Kong, well, it used to be Diddy Kong Banjo and Crunch characters licensed by Nintendo. Now just Diddy Kong and Crunch characters licensed by Nintendo, as well as Diddy Kong Racing itself, which is trademark of Nintendo.
Yeah, the way I've like always tried to describe like how bizarre Diddy Kong Racing situation is to people who don't have context, at least per my understanding of it. Because, I'm not a lawyer. I only go by what I've read on 20-year-old boxes. It's Diddy Kong Racing is a racing game with guest characters where the guest character also got top billing.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be like Banjo-Kazooie with Sega or with Sonic and Sega All-Stars, but I mean, yeah, that's essentially the way it was, but it's not the way the game was promoted. It's not the way the game was written about. It's just...
No, it was a Diddy Kong game.
Yeah. And so it was just this completely odd, unique situation where Nintendo needed a big holiday game in 1997. The game Rare had in the works, promised for them, the one they had tied up with a Taco Bell promotion, couldn't be out in time. So luckily Rare had this other game, and Nintendo is willing to make that game a success no matter what, including giving them a character, loaning them a character.
I think at one point it held the record for most pre-ordered game, so it evidently worked.
It was a huge deal. It was in the Guinness Book of World Records, Cameron. And that's why after 2002, actually a little bit before 2002, because the game sort of disappeared before Conker's Bad Fur Day came out. But 2002, the complete evaporation of Diddy Kong Racing, aside from, references here or there, Rare would reference it more than Nintendo. And that's the real kicker here. They would reference it by name. Diddy Kong Racing was name dropped in Nuts and Bolts. Conker gave a faux interview in the lead up to Live and Reloaded, and that's where we learned that somebody from the Diddy Kong Racing cast was in prison. So, I mean, it would get referenced, but neither entity could really do much with it.
Yeah, you'd see like coy references on Nintendo's end where there was a mission in one of the Smash games, like, hey, all these angry Diddy Kongs, did they lose a race or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even Diddy Kong, his inclusion in Toadstool Tour, in his inclusion in Double Dash, he was in Toadstool Tour too, but there's no Diddy Kong Racing references in that. His inclusion in Double Dash, his home track was Dino Dino Jungle, I think.
Yeah, which we only know because people dug through the code, and that's the track he was assigned. Like, it's not even called out as a Diddy Kong track in that game. Right, but why would Diddy Kong's track, his home track, be Dino Dino Jungle if it wasn't a little nod to Diddy Kong Racing? Yeah, you can see like the symmetry there. So yeah, it's been this kind of aloof thing, right? Sakurai brought it up in the Banjo-Kazooie demonstration after those characters were announced for Smash. It seems like it's pretty much fair game to, in any context, say, yeah, Banjo's first game was Diddy Kong Racing. That's just factually what happened. As you said, like, the Conker interview said it's name dropped in Nuts and Bolts. It gets name dropped in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing with Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah.
And so that's fine, but as far as like celebrating the characters, right? As far as pulling anything outside of Banjo, Conker, Diddy Kong out of the mothballs and doing something with them, I've never given up hope. I have never, from the end of the Nintendo Rare partnership to today, I have never once thought like, well, we're just never going to see these characters again. Hashtag TT in Sea of Thieves, everyone. Hashtag TTC in Sea of Thieves. But I have to admit, after a while, you start to kind of lose the faith just a bit, especially with, as you mentioned, all those flirtations that Rare has done with bringing the characters back. The Fast and the Furious, or TT in Sea of Thieves. But nothing has really bore fruit, except, of course, Diddy Kong Racing DS. And Diddy Kong Racing DS, again, let's flip the box over and let's read the copyright. Diddy Kong Racing DS is interesting because it's kind of the reverse. It's kind of the reverse of the original Diddy Kong Racing, right? Because it says copyright 2007 Nintendo, game by Rare, certain characters licensed by Rare. So here, Diddy Kong Racing, we have a Diddy Kong Racing game that is published by Nintendo, and then everything else is licensed by Rare.
Yeah, I remember being like really confused by that wording back in the day, because certain characters licensed by Rare, so is that saying, okay, Rare licensed you certain characters, or Rare licensed certain characters from you? Mm-hmm. And I realized, like, the former is probably what they meant.
Yeah, but Diddy Kong Racing DS's very existence has kind of created this, I think, misunderstanding among a lot of fans who don't read the fine print like we do. and they think that Nintendo, like, has owned everybody, right?
Yeah, because the only, like, characters excised from that game were Banjo and Conker.
And the only reason Banjo and Conker, and we don't have any actual inside word on this. This is just, I think, our understanding. Maybe something came out in 2007, but I think it was 2007 era Microsoft just wasn't keen on having two of their bigger IPs at the time in this Nintendo game.
I'm not sure if like it was pressure from Nintendo or Microsoft, but either party would be understandable having an issue with this. But I think it's plain that they didn't have an issue with, like, say, Tip Top being in the game, even though by that point he was like firmly a Banjo-Kazooie character, because, well, Tip Top isn't selling Xboxes.
Speak for yourself. I tell you, Cameron.
Well, Xbox is plural.
I went down to the gaming haberdashery the very day after the buyout and said, "Did you hear the news? Rare is going to Xbox. Why? I can't wait to play all the Tip Top games on the big green console."
Why are you buying games at the Hat Store?
I don't know. Because I've slagged GameStop enough in the last couple episodes that I didn't want to complete the hat trick, if you were.
Haberdashery sounds like it could be a game store name along the lines of Funko Land and Babbage's. So
no, I Tip Top, like, he was one of those characters where we always fantasized about his own game, right? There was somebody wrote in a Scribes, I'll never forget it, but they pitched a Tip Top game, and it wasn't me. They pitched a Tip Top game. It was like Tip Top Heaven and Shell or something. But I mean, that's the language we dealt in from 1997 to 2002. It's just like, well, we got Banjo, we got Conker, Trickies in Dinosaur Planet. Sky's the limit. Like, all these characters are ripe for their own games. So anyway, like, this past few days since these pins were revealed, it feels like I went on a tear. Cause I was giddy. I was high off the supply of Diddy Kong Racing merchandise for the first time in decades. Like, ignoring Diddy Kong Racing DS, because technically, I guess a video game is merchandise, but ignoring Diddy Kong Racing DS, this is the first Diddy Kong Racing anything in over 2 decades. The Toy Biz figures were the last pieces of actual Diddy Kong Racing merchandise. Oh my god. I don't know if there's a player's guide for Diddy Kong Racing DS. But I'm not including that. I just mean like toys, gear,
not books and magazines, but like actual like apparel, toys.
So everyone, it seemed, had questions about this, because I made a tweet about this, and it kind of blew up because nobody else was tweeting about this. And so a lot of people, like Super Mario Wiki retweeted it, and then John Cartwright retweeted it, and it became a thing. And so people were like, I thought Nintendo owned Timber. What? And so, I was like, oh, I know all about this because I'm a Donkey Kong scholar. Let me answer this. And, it's just from reading copyright information for 27 years. I mean, that's all it is. But, I know that, people are still confused by it. Now, I haven't seen the perfect storm of somebody thinking that Nintendo owns all the Diddy Kong Racing characters except Crunch because Rare owns the Kremlings. Because the rumor that Rare owns the Kremlings still persists. Even though K. Rool's in Smash.
I understood it when like K. Rool was exclusively like showing up in games that not a ton of people played, or like he was just not everybody reads the trophies in Smash, but when he's outright playable in the game, I'm like, come on.
Yeah. So like, that would be, I think, that was what I was waiting for. I was hoping somebody would be, but I thought Nintendo owned everybody, except Crunch, of course, because Rare owns the Kremlings. So anyway, the rights issues are just something that I have always obsessed over. And I think having these pins and having it be like the hot topic of conversation this week, I don't know. Maybe I talked about it too much. I'm sorry if everybody was sick of hearing me say it like for the upteenth time that, well, you see in 1997, well, you see in 2007, but hey, that's what you do. But anyway, yeah. This is just, it's really cool to see because I kind of lost hope a little bit, even though I would never let the flame completely die out. We haven't seen Timber in anything, like not even a t-shirt. And I'm just like, are they being so careful, even though they can do stuff with Timber? Maybe they didn't want to because the association, the implication, and they don't want it to be like, oh, we're trying to make,
kind of can't say like, oh, we put out a Timber the Tiger shirt. Oh, what was he from? Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh, what's that over there? Is that a squirrel? Oh, yeah. Look at our Conquer merchandise. Yeah, it's like the thing, like we were talking about Nintendo social media on the other episode, and like, well, they didn't tweet anything about Donkey Kong's 40th birthday. Well, yeah, but they don't have anything specifically Donkey Kong to sell you right now. They're tweeting about Metroid's 35th because Metroid Dread was about to come out. So it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, what if they did do Timber merchandise or anything like, well, that's not really in service of anything, right? Like Diddy Kong Racing can't be in Rare Replay, so you can't point people towards that. There's nothing on, Game Pass, that has these characters. So that would be understandable why we wouldn't see anything, but we, the fans, we really wanted it, Cameron. This has been like walking through a desert for, almost 20 years, right? And then finding an oasis. And the oasis is just full of sharp, prickly little thumbtacks. But I'm still going to shove them in my mouth because I'm so desperate for something other than sand.
You just need to get you like a Scrooge McDuck vault for all these rare pins.
Yeah, I was thinking like I'm going to have to get a new display because I leave them in the package too. I've been just leaving them in the package because I don't want to lose any of them and they're so tiny, but like, I don't know, maybe I need to get something that I can like press them into. And
Fangamer always does like neat little graphic design stuff on their packaging too to like guilt you into not throwing it away.
Right, exactly. And I realized looking around the DK Vine offices, oh, I've become a crazy hoarder. Oh no. When's my intervention? So let's just put the kibosh on a train of thought because we haven't brought this up on purpose. So the fact that Fangamer is rolling out this RareRacers brand to ostensibly do something with these Diddy Kong Racing cast members and iconography that Rare and Microsoft own. Just because there is this branding for it now that we're all very excited about, it doesn't correlate to anything else, right? Like, I don't want to pour cold water on anybody, but Banjo and Kazooie and Conker have been getting merchandise for years now. It doesn't mean there's a new game on the horizon. Jet Force Gemini just got a vinyl release the same day that these RareRacers pins and the Ginginator plush were announced. Definitely doesn't mean a Jet Force Gemini game is incoming, right? This is just, I think, Rare and Fangamer being really cool.
Yeah, I see this crop up a lot of the times in video game discussions, but like, no, most of the time when merchandise pops up for an older game, it doesn't correlate to anything, especially like Fangamer does merchandise for older games all the time.
Yeah.
And I think the like biggest sticking point is if they were doing something with this would not have been the first time that we heard the branding RareRacers. Like this is clearly like a merchandising label.
But here's the thing, Cameron. That's okay. That is okay because it is a foothold after we've been dangling on this cliff for forever now. We actually now can see TT merchandise. We can see Pipsy maybe cropping up here or there. This also opens up the possibility of maybe a RareRacers ship set in Sea of Thieves down the line. Or, you know, there's room to grow here. And what this does is it kind of finally opens up that window again and allows us to have these characters back where we can celebrate them in an appropriate context that is legally safe and distinct, that doesn't trample on any trademarks, you know? And that's all we wanted. That's all we wanted for so long, because I don't know if, obviously some people at Rare have understood, right? How much these characters and how much this game means to people. But I don't know if the realization fully set in. It certainly has now because they're doing it. Somewhere, someone got the memo and they're like, we're going to try this. And for that, I can't begin to express my appreciation and admiration, because to see Timber the Tiger, his image on a piece of merchandise in 2021, it was just weirdly a relief. I'm not going to say I cried over a pin, but I might have gotten a little misty because, yeah, this is such an important pillar of the community, of everything we have done at DK Vine since 1999, of so many people's childhood and warm, happy memories. I can't think of the holiday season without thinking of Diddy Kong Racing. And part of that is, like, I remember trying to beat one of TT's time trials right before we went to get the Christmas tree that year. I also think about our own Matt Corna's song, I Wish I Was the Walrus Every Day, which I'm not going to repeat the lyrics here, but it is an earworm, and it will forever link many things with Diddy Kong Racing. But yeah, it's just, it is such a big part of my life. I talk about Diddy Kong Racing probably every day. And I think one of the reasons, the discussion I had with Josh about feeling a little bit blue when I went to Nintendo's website, the archived version of Nintendo's website from the turn of the century, and I saw like how much that game was like part of the language of Nintendo and of Rare fandom back then, and to see it like be such a non-entity now because of these circumstances, it broke my heart. It really did break my heart. And yeah, there's more important issues in the world, climate change and inequality. And so I'm not saying like getting a cartoon tiger on a pin isn't some like grand prevailing over injustice. It's just this mascot racer from our youth came back in a pin you can buy on a website. That's all it is. But I'm going to take victories in these embittered times where I can get them, Cameron. And this is a victory. This is a big fucking deal. And I just can't wait to see. One, I can't wait to get my pins in the mail. But I also just can't wait to see, you know, where else this merchandise brand might grow from here. Because I can tell you right now, I'm going to buy everything. Because I'm on the family plan for Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack. So I can probably afford to throw my money around a little bit more and get a bumper pin, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I can safely say you put any of this stuff on this store, I will buy it.
We have calls. We have calls because, like I said, people are excited about these stupid little pins. So we've got 3 callers, and we'll play those, and then we're gonna give, I think, some final thoughts, and we might shoot some ideas back and forth about what other Rare Racers merchandise we would like to see in the future. So let's take the first call.
Diddy Kong Racing! Oh, Diddy Kong Racing, the most development hell we'll see since the Golden Eyes 5 company springs. You know, when I was watching that Banjo-Kazooie presentation, I couldn't believe Sakurai had the goal to tell us about Microsoft. Not even to go tell us to play Xbox. They might want to go edit that in a month or two. Or that, you know, to embrace any of Microsoft or Xbox. But he mentioned Diddy Kong Racing. Well, then again, Sakurai does what Sakurai wants. But what a gutsy move. Probably his most daring. Anyways, on to the legacy of Rare and how they're embracing the characters. Great. It's nice to see the Microsoft logo on their timber, which finally clears up the notion that Banjo and Conker were removed because they were quote-unquote owned by Microsoft. They're all owned by Microsoft now. Well, obviously except Diddy Crunch and Tiny Dixie. But, you know, so I was thinking, embracing the legacy is cool. But what if in the upcoming Everwild game, there was a pack of animals? I know they can't really make them anthropomorphic or even give them clothes for that matter because, well, it's not what Everwild is going to be. It's a little bit more realistic than that. Well, not realistic in graphics, so you know. Well, I don't even know. It's not like cartoony characters interacting. But have a tiger, a mouse, an elephant, a pig, and a badger, a family-friendly badger, of course. And, you know, just put them all together. If I forgot anybody, I'm so sorry. The turtle. No, I heard said turtle. Yeah, have them all be retconned canonically as maybe the ancestors of these Diddy Kong Racing characters. Or, maybe they decide to take up a new wild culture nudist. Okay, we'll save it for another day. But, Timbers Island and Everwild, the bare-bone explorations of the foundations of Timbers Island and Everwild. Do it, Rare. Have a good one.
Thank you for the call. That was Gothic Teddy Bear, by the way, who's responsible for the new YouTube channel, Oracle Historical. Gets into a lot of DKU topics, which you love to see. So thank you for the call. Cameron, I believe this is the very beginning of the hashtag Bumper in Everwild campaign. At least it sounds like it to me. And to that I say one thing at a time. Let's get TT and Sea of Thieves, and then we can focus on the future. Yeah, I mean, like...
It does kind of bring to attention, like, something I haven't really... I mean, I'd say haven't really thought about. We've thought about this. That, like, part of why we haven't seen these characters in a while isn't just the everything surrounding Diddy Kong Racing, but also Rare's latest games have been ones that don't necessarily lend themselves to return appearances from Diddy Kong Racing characters, like, stylistically. Like, we campaign for TT and Sea of Thieves, but that's because we have, like, a very specific reimagining in mind for him.
Well, that, and we also saw TT in the... was it the Unity build of Sea of Thieves?
Right.
So,
what I mean is, like, if we hadn't seen that, this idea would have never occurred to, I think, either of us in a million years.
No. And to anybody at Rare who's sick of us talking about TT and Sea of Thieves, maybe you shouldn't have put that idea in our heads, Inception style. Yeah, like, look, we were fine just talking about Captain Black Eye and Sea of Thieves, and then you dangle this new thing over us, and we're like, yes, that's even weirder. Let's go with that.
And Pendragon is in the game, which is maybe weirder than both of those.
I mean, an anthropomorphic magical stopwatch is probably weirder than a mustachioed adventurer man. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying.
No, Pendragon's pretty weird.
I mean, yeah, about as weird as Wizpig getting an action figure before.
Pendragon, star of Sea of Thieves, and a comic based on Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll always be hoping these characters appear somewhere. And that's been the case since 1997, and since, Tipped Up showed up in Banjo-Kazooie. Cause, then, one of my things is if we get a new Conker game at some point down the line, I would love for Bumper to be the Tipped Up of Conker, right? The Diddy Kong Racing character who's like the supporting character in that franchise, because I feel like Bumper would work considering his sordid subsequent years after Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah, but of course, to Gothic Teddy Bear's point, like, even in games where it doesn't really make contextual sense to have these characters present in any way, I'm fine with just a like a winking nod that makes sense within the context of the universe. That's always appreciated. And
just to be clear, TT in Sea of Thieves makes absolutely perfect sense. And I don't want to hear otherwise. Thank you for the call. The next call is actually 2 calls. So we're going to play both back to back. And then we'll talk about both.
Hey, Hyle. And I forgot who the co-host is. I think you said it was going to be Cameron. I could be wrong. Sorry, whoever you are. Anyway. Jabba here, and I am on my way home from work, and I knew you had been planning on doing the episode on the RareRacers thing going on ever since the announcement of the pins on Fangamer. Sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. I just got off work, so I'm scatterbrained at the moment. But anyway, yeah. What I think is amazing right now is I'm actually playing through 3 different DKU games, just kind of alternating. I'm playing Grab by the Ghoulies, D-Caking and Swing, and the adventure mode Diddy Kong Racing right now. And I just thought it was really, really cool that they're doing this right now and kind of finding a way to revitalize. And to be honest, I think it means one of two things, maybe both. This might be wishful thinking, but I feel like this either is signaling Diddy Kong Racing coming to the Switch expansion pack for Nintendo Switch Online, or maybe they are making a Rare crossover racing game. I think the Switch Online thing is a lot more possible than the other, but who knows? I mean, we're nothing if not hopeful. But yeah, I'm still trying to decide what pins I want to get. I told it's that time of year where me and my wife are trying to figure out what we want to get each other for Christmas, and I put both the pins on my list, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, to save myself from rambling and just kind of going off on tangents, I guess. Have a good one. Hey, it's Jebba again. Sorry, I meant to mention this in the first call. I think another thing that is vital to remember about the brand RareRacers or Diddy Kong Racing merch or whatever the hell is the fact that Bumper is out of prison. And though, I mean, I know it was stated in like 2014 or whatever that he's out, but, you know, the fact that Rare doubled down on it very recently, I think, is a big point to mention along with this, because Bumper has only been in Diddy Kong Racing. So, yeah. I don't know if that means anything or if this was worth calling back again, but I was going to do it, damn it. Okay, bye.
Thank you for the calls, Jebaha. No, I definitely don't think it means anything, although I am always happy to talk about Bumper. I could talk about Bumper until the sun comes up, and then I'll eat breakfast, and then I'll talk about him some more. No, the fact that Bumper has had this long, complicated history, completely outside of the games, has just been, I think, Rare's sense of humor. You know, specifically Love Day's sense of humor, because it all originates from the Rare's website, and you know,
it speaks to the Diddy Kong Racing's like legacy that, like, self-confessed, like the reason they were able to make that joke in Scribes is because there are no stakes to attributing that kind of history to Bumper. Yeah, because he's not going to show up in a new game tomorrow and be a super marketable character. Right. And the whole reason that Rare's Twitter account spoke to that the other week was because Super Mario Wiki made a tweet about it, and on Super Mario Wiki, like, Bumper came up on the main site and one of the like bullet points was, it has been said he's in prison. And then that started making the rounds. So Rare replied to it and said he's actually out of prison, which as you said, we've known about for quite a while, but most people don't pay attention to this sort of stuff. Most people are just finding out that Bumper was in prison at all. And that's not even technically, like, we got word that, like, Lee said he likes to think Bumper is out of prison by now. This was like retroactive hard confirmation.
Well, the thing is, Diddy Kong Racing DS, Cameron. Right, if we take that to be a new adventure, because it does have Teenage Tiny Kong in it, so it can't possibly take place in 1997. Plus, that piece of promotional, artwork, the postcard they sent out that said explicitly that it took place 10 years later. I think we were to infer that Bumper was on parole then. So he was only in prison for a couple of years. But anyway, again, what I said about being a scholar when it comes to this stuff, like, I can point you to when Bumper was pretty clearly out of prison. But it is nice to hear, no matter how you view Diddy Kong Racing DS and the canon placement of it, that Bumper is out. You
don't think he just got, like, furloughed for the weekend to help on Timbers Island and then sent back?
I'm sure the parole board would have been more sympathetic. extraterrestrial genie pig is back. Yeah, okay. Bumper, you go out. You're granted parole. Take care of this problem for us. I don't know. That's a whole story I would love to be able to read, right? Like, I want a Bumper novel. Bumper the Lost Years. Like, Rare Racers presents Bumper the Lost Years. I would buy that novel off Fangamer for sure. Anyway, yeah, and as far as like software goes, again, like we said, there's no correlation there between this. This is just cool merchandise. I mean, hope springs eternal. I will always hope for Diddy Kong Racing to appear on the Switch. I will always hope for a Rare branded racer. But as far as what this means, there's no meaning here. It's just really cool, and it's great that we can start celebrating these characters in such a way again. Specifically, Rare can start celebrating these characters in such a way again. We've been celebrating them nonstop since 1997. But thank you for the calls, Jebaha, and I hope your wife gets you both pins. All right, we have one more call, and then we'll wrap this up. But I'm sure we will be discussing pins as pertaining to the Rare Racers brand as they show up for many the episode to come. All right, let's play the call.
Hey guys, Rick here. I grew up with Diddy Kong Racing. I love that game. I love the characters. I think it's legit one of the best casts in any racing game. They're all new, almost all of them, but there's so much variety there. And if this could lead to like everyone in the cast getting their own solo games, I think that'd be fantastic. My idea is Drumstick getting his own character action game made by Platinum. I think that's just ballpark. We got it. All right, guys, take care.
See, Rick has been rekindled by the fires of the late 90s, the same fires that fueled us. Because that is the joy of the Diddy Kong Racing cast, is it not? Like, the fact that they were all new, sans Diddy, that they all represented this unlimited potential, and it felt like the universe could expand for years out of that game afterwards. And so that's like, I think why the Diddy Kong Racing cast is so appealing to me. It's not, as it has been misinterpreted by so many people after the fact, it is not just a Rare crossover game, right? It is essentially an all-new cast, ground zero, day one, for everyone but Diddy. And that was what I think made the cast so instantly memorable, and why somebody like Pipsy, despite having very little backstory in the game, resonates with me more than the Mario cast that I know in games like Mario Kart, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to shit talk the Koopa Troopa again. I got in trouble for shit talking the Koopa Troopa in Mario Kart the other episode because, Koopa Troopa has fans, and I apologize. But the Koopa Troopa in Mario Kart, I'm not going to have any emotional resonance, any connection with that Koopa Troopa, because I don't know what that Koopa Troopa has been through, right? But Pipsy is this mouse. She has a name. She was exiled from her mountain home by Wizpig. And just from there, my imagination just builds on it. And it's that way with the whole cast. And yeah, that is, I think, why, like, I hear people talking about, like, a fun parlor game. It's a game you and Jeff, I think you said, were playing just the other week, and it might be a great topic for a future episode coming up, but, like, talking about how you could do a Rare Racer in the present or in the not too distant future. Like, what characters would you use? And for me, like, that's really cool, and that's kind of another itch I have as a fan, but it doesn't necessarily scratch the same itch that Diddy Kong Racing represents. Diddy Kong Racing was an all-new cast. And from there, you wanted to see them in other things, non-racing games.
It's this weird like confluence of circumstances where Diddy Kong Racing is both a game with an original cast and a crossover game because of the circumstances of, it was going to be a totally original cast, and then guest characters were added to like bump up the marquee a little bit more.
But also these guest characters appeared in this game before their own games premiered, and then they were baked into the pre-existing Donkey Kong lore. You know, like I keep bringing it up.
Canonical friends of Diddy Kong, Banjo and Conker.
I keep bringing it up. Conker's biography on Rare's website back in the day, before Bad Fur Day, led with like his good friend Diddy Kong, comma. And so
I feel like DK and Diddy like just logged onto Conker's Facebook page one day and just think, oh God, what road did he go down? Oh Lord.
I'm sure they heard about him becoming king. That's a pretty big story. It's not like, so yeah, I mean, like it's weird because I want different things, right? Like I would love a game, you know, down the line that utilize maybe the RareRacers branding. Fangamer presents RareRacers, the game. But, you know, that's kind of ostensibly a follow-up to Diddy Kong Racing, utilizing the cast and maybe some new characters in there as well, because you gotta have new characters too. Like, let's not just revisit these familiar faces. Let's get in. What was the character we were joking about in the Discord? Was it Milky the Moose?
Yeah, I think it was Jeff came up with that as sort of a hypothetical, like if you were to make a new racing game from Rare, like because people kind of want two different things. It's either like you want a Diddy Kong Racing in all but name, where it's an original cast and a handful of like characters of Rares from other games, or you want to spin it into something different, which is like the massive like multi-title like history parade of Rare characters from all over the place and focus it primarily around that. Like
I've seen a third option being bandied about too in social media, where people want an Xbox Studios racer, and that's the weird position that Rare fandom is in, right? That you have like these three tiers of potential crossover racing games. You have like this kind of like follow up to Diddy Kong Racing with the Timbers Island cast. Or you could have the whole Rare crossover with like things like Killer Instinct and Perfect Dark and Battletoads and, you know, Sea of Thieves. Or you could just go completely Xbox Studios. And I think it speaks to the depth of Rare's IP stable, right? Like they have an IP stable that rivals Nintendo. And they're just this one pillar of Xbox Studios. It's a weird place for the fandom to be in. And I know Jeff's argument was, well, a RareRacers game that like only utilized that cast, you know, that they can use, wouldn't it be very marketable sans Diddy Kong? I don't know. I think Milky the Moose would move some units.
I think, there's marketability to just doing a Diddy Kong Racing follow-up, but speaking personally, I would be way more interested in the Rare crossover game, or just because that is something I haven't seen before that is still hitting on something that is adjacent to something I really like. And you can kind of see how I feel like Rare themselves were looking at Diddy Kong Racing through that lens just a few years later, because you saw what they were planning for Diddy Kong Pilot and Donkey Kong Racing, which were firmly Donkey Kong universe games, like centered around Donkey Kong characters with like slight bleed over. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tosh, weirdly enough.
Like, the hypothetical I brought up when we were kind of talking about this is, like, they could do something like, and this is an old one to cite, but it's the only one that came to my mind, what was Marvel vs. Capcom 2, where that's a character roster that, for one, is humongous, and is also... the majority of it is who you're coming to see because their name's on the ticket. It's Marvel characters and it's Capcom characters, but they also threw in a handful of original characters who the game's story is kind of crafted around a little bit, at least in the case of Ruby Heart. And you could do it that way, like have your cake and eat it too.
I guess I'm greedy, Cameron. I want both. I want the RareRacers, like Timbers Island cast, plus like the DKU centric cast members from characters games like Banjo-Kazooie and Conker. Let's have RareRacers with everybody from Timbers Island, but then Banjo with Kazooie and Mumbo and Mr. Fit. And Canary Mary's there, and then we might have like Birdie and Rodent and Ted the Boat Builder, the Evil Acorn, and Honker. You've got to have Honker, and then you have Milky the Moose, representing like the next generation. But I also want that big Rare crossover, where everything crosses over, like what we thought Saberman Stampede was going to be in that period where we didn't know anything about it, where we envisioned like Donkey Kong Racing, but switching out the Kongs with, people from the entire Rare stable.
Honestly,
of games.
just give me a roster so big that it is all things to all people. That's really what I want.
I also want Nintendo to do something with the Diddy Kong Racing brand, which they and give me a racing game starring Diddy Kong on the Switch. Just give me everything. I'm not picky. But I'm very picky.
I would settle for reliably having Diddy in Mario Kart and not like every other game.
Hey, congrats on finally getting Dixie in Mario Kart Tour, though.
Yeah.
You didn't have to spend $40 on her. No, that's a good thing.
I've gotten every character I really wanted in that game and did not have to spend a dime.
Well... Look at you, the man who saved his money, and me over here, penniless, because I bought Dixie Kong. And I spent $40 on the DK Maximum, the DK Jumbo that looks varnished with gold plating. I was like, $40? Okay. I need it. Cameron, I'm broken, but it's fine, cause again, my only passions are the DKU and the Beatles, and it just means I can't buy the new Let It Be box set, for a while, because I've spent all my money on pins, Cameron. And, we could talk about, like, down the line, like, wouldn't it be fun if we had a RareRacers game, or wouldn't it be fun we had this big Rare crossover racing game, but I am going to be content for a little while in just having this merchandise. Fangamer presents RareRacers. Pins are great. I'm going to buy all the pins, but like I said, this could be just the beginning for the merchandising potential. Now that these characters are back, maybe we could see other stuff. And so I've got an idea, but do you have any ideas you would like to see?
I'm up for pretty much anything.
All right. Well, then you'll love this. All right.
You're going to make me eat those words.
You know the Conker plush where you squeeze him and he says like, "Hey, hands off," right? I can't do a good Conker impression. I was never the one to do a Conker impression, but you know that. Yeah, it's great, right? It's great fun. People love it. All right. Well, imagine Tickle Me Bumper All right. And he comes, because Fangamer also just released the Banjo and Kazooie plush in Best Buy stores in that gorgeous, three-sided box, like three-color box, with Spiral Mountain on three sides, right?
Yeah. Also art by Nina Matsumoto, I believe.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So imagine you get Tickle Me Bumper, but he comes in a jail cell. So when it crosses the line, you can safely cage him for another few years. That's my idea. Tickle Me Bumper.
That tickles. Oh boy. Oh boy, that tickles.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.